This certificate saga has been a top-notch news that has been going on in this country, and it has
You're
been
tuning
taking
in for the
a
first
lot of
time,
people's
please
mind.
try as much as possible
What really
to
happened?
subscribe and also click on the bell icon to receive notifications of my videos anytime I release a new video.
He has a lot of critics. Why is that? What are the simple reasons why he has so many critics right now, including yourself?
Why is it that no media outside the country, no media channel outside the country has ever carried this news? Is it that they believe that it is true, or they believe that it's not true, or they don't just want to, get involved? So BBC recently, I don't know if BBC was bribed as if other politicians in Nigeria has been bribed to, publish a report in favor of Tinubu. I don't know, but just listen to David Hundei. Right now, we're happy. Here, he's been interviewed by an American media personnel. Just listen to what David Hundei
Well,
had to
there are
say.
multiple reasons for that, but I guess the one that grabs the most headlines is the fact that the person who is now the president of Nigeria is in fact a drug criminal with a criminal history in the United States of all places. So for many years this had been rumored, but I don't think anyone had actually properly tried to dig into this story until I sank my teeth into it last year. And I was able to get my hands on federal court documents from the Northern District of Illinois Eastern Division, and it laid out the case very clearly that in 1992 he was the subject of a U.S. federal investigation as part of a heroin trafficking investigation, and he was found to be the money launderer working with a heroin trafficking ring, a Nigerian heroin trafficking ring in Chicago. And at the end of the investigation, he was forced to forfeit the sum of $460,000 to the United States government. Unfortunately, at the time, he wasn't actually in the US. He'd returned to Nigeria to run for political office at the time, which would probably explain why there wasn't a criminal conviction. But, be that as it may, the very fact of the asset forfeiture in itself, I think tells you everything you need to know. It was stated very clearly in the court documents that the sum of $460,000 is being forfeited to the United States government, being proceeds of narcotics trafficking, right? Heroin trafficking. So that's the person who apparently is now Nigeria's president. Being that Nigeria already has it's fair to say, a bit of an image problem. This certainly is not going to be very helpful. Being potentially perceived as a narco state or a state that is being led by someone with at least a significant history of drug trafficking, that's certainly going to be a problem.
That is the truth. Nigerians, we don't have reputation at all. No single one. Move outside the country, we don't have reputation. Sometimes some of the Nigerians, when they ask outside the country, where are you from? They prefer to say they are from Ghana, they are from Tanzania. Why? Why? Because we don't have image. Nigerian name is blacklisted. But we are trying to see if we can be able to at least make things better. Rebuild our reputation. Not to have this kind of man to be our president. Please, I don't have to say this alone. Just hear him.
Then the secondary issue, which is tacked onto the back of that, is while I was digging into this story last year and obviously trying to verify the other bits of his personal background and story, which he declared on his presidential declaration, it also became clear that, for lack of a better term, the president is a ghost. We don't know who this guy is, right? Because so as part of the efforts to verify, obviously the tales he's told for years, subpoenas were sent out to the companies he claimed to have worked at, the institutions he claimed to have attended. So he once claimed to have attended the University of Chicago. This was very quickly put down by the University of Chicago, which disowned him and said they didn't know him. So then he quickly changed the story and said, no, actually it was Chicago State University. And, for whatever reason, this was able to fly in 1999 when he first ran for governor. This time around, I decided to test that out. Like, did he actually go to this university? So in conjunction with a law firm in Chicago, Leahy, Eisenberg, and Franco, and an independent lawyer in Nigeria, we actually were able to get a subpoena sent out to Chicago State University. And the results that came back made it very clear that the person that Chicago State University has on file as a Bola A. Tinubu and the person who is now Nigeria's president, who is called Bola Ahmed Tinubu, are not in fact the same person, because the person who is on file there was a woman.
Identity theft. Yes, you thief person identity, allegedly. See, you attended a university and like you claimed, and the university you graduated with honors issued you a certificate, and you did not notice that that certificate they issued you has female on it. And of course, you know you're a Nigerian. We don't do gay thing. We don't do transgender thing here in this country. And now, from that year you took that certificate, you never corrected it till when FBI raided your house and they took the certificate and you lost the certificate. You did not go back to collect the certificate, but rather change the female there.
It's a pity that under Nigerian law, he was actually able to be sworn into office before these legal challenges could actually be completed. But I guess someone has to do the job, so here we are.
I was going to ask you, David, on that note where you ended, the fact that I think that it was just earlier this year a Nigerian court ruled, I think it was an appeals court, ruled that, or rejected basically, petitions filed by opposition challenging the legitimacy of his presidency or his victory, including questioning his qualifications. So why, if what you are saying is the case, if these from decades ago, these things in fact happened as you're describing them, and I know that you've looked up and have the documents for them, why then did a Nigerian appeals court move forward and reject the petitions opposing it and move forward with the election, as you said?
So, an unfortunate thing about the justice system in Nigeria is, first of all, it's not independent. The judiciary is actually not independent of the executive. The executive controls the money of the judiciary. The second thing is there's a very bad habit of delivering this thing called justice by technicality. So in the case of his educational qualifications and his failure to declare an additional nationality, which was also another perjury on the electoral declaration, what the court basically said was, oh, well, the way this evidence was submitted didn't meet this process or that process, therefore we're not admitting it, we're striking it out. So basically, that decision wasn't made on the merits of the case, it was made off the back of a technicality. And even more farcically, in my opinion, the judgment that was made regarding the fact that he had, forfeited money for heroin trafficking, he had involvement in heroin trafficking. What the court said basically was, it was his bank accounts that were sued by the US government, I guess, using the framework of a US civil asset forfeiture, technically is true. But obviously, you and I know that's a legal technicality, because obviously a bank account is not a standalone entity. There's an individual behind it. So what the Nigerian Appeal Court said was the bank accounts in the name of Bola Ahmed Tinubu committed the crimes and not the man, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So basically, the president's bank accounts are guilty of drug trafficking, but not the man, not the president. The president. I personally think that's a ridiculous judgment, but here we are.
David, we have only a couple more minutes, but I wanted to ask you about the documents the FBI here in the States, of course, now says that they're going to release on President Tinubu and your role in helping that to happen.
Yes. So shortly before the election, I'd actually tried to get hold of the documents in Tinubu's FBI file, because I know for a fact anyone who has ever been the subject of a U.S. federal investigation does in fact have an FBI file. And in response to the FOIA, the FBI said because of privacy considerations, we're not going to give you this information. He's a private citizen. So after the election, which he purportedly won, he's no longer a private citizen. He's now a public official. So he sent, in conjunction with a gentleman called Aaron Greenspan, who runs a website called plainsight.org. You might be aware of it. He's based in San Francisco. We sent off another set of FOIAs, this time to the FBI, the CIA, the State Department, the DEA, IRS, and US attorneys. And they initially stonewalled. So we went to court, right? So myself and Aaron, in conjunction with a lawyer whom we were able to get to work pro bono. So in the initial submission from the respondents was that potentially this was going to drag on to like 2026. And then a couple of weeks ago, pretty much out of nowhere, I didn't see it coming. It was, I think, Friday, September 8th, I think it was.